Today, I want to talk to you about the hedgehog concept. So every entrepreneur, I think, at least that I work with, has a similar problem. They want to do everything. After all, part of the allure for them to pursue entrepreneurship was be able to have choice in their activities, immunity from the constraints set by others, and ultimately this freedom of movement and finances, etc., that we talk about all the time. But this freedom that we have can often lead to this paralyzing lack of focus that creates small businesses and small business owners that are disorganized, that are poorly managed, and oftentimes they become financially taxed, even sometimes to the point of bankruptcy because they can't get focused. So generally, this all starts with the entrepreneur's choice of business models. So an electrical contractor thinks that they need to do service work and installation work and industrial work. An architect perhaps thinks they need to design both small, affordable homes and large commercial buildings. A painter, for example, thinks that it would be a great idea to restain decks and paint house exteriors and reseal highway bridge abutments. Okay, so these are all actual examples of clients of mine who were at one time plagued with a common challenge. And that was that they actually had too much freedom. They literally could do anything they wanted, so they tried to do everything. Now, one of the models that I like to use most with entrepreneurs who are experiencing this challenge is called the hedgehog concept. I'll put a graphic up about it here in a second, but the hedgehog concept was popularized by Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, one of the books that's on my reading list. And it's based on a famous essay by a guy named Isaiah Berlin called The Hedgehog and the Fox, which describes how the world is divided into two types. The fox knows many small things. The fox is a very cunning creature, and he's able to devise complex strategies to sneak attack upon the hedgehog. But the hedgehog knows one big thing. He knows how to roll up into a perfect little ball, and he becomes this sphere of sharp spikes that point outward in all directions. And generally, the hedgehog wins, despite all the different tactics that the fox uses. So in business, small business in particular, we want to be the hedgehog. This boils down to understanding what we're passionate about, what we're good at, and what society finds valuable, and executing at the intersection of these three places. So Jim Collins' interpretation of the hedgehog concept looks like this graphic. So the top circle, what you're deeply passionate about. Bottom right, what drives your economic engine. Bottom left, what you can be the best in the world at. And that little dark circle in the middle is the hedgehog concept. That's where all of those three things come together. So applying the hedgehog concept inside of your business is pretty simple. Notice I didn't say easy. You may be getting my drift now. There are a lot of things that are simple, but not always easy. But applying the hedgehog concept requires you to make hard choices, and it requires you to say no to things that don't fit within your particular focus. So here's some steps that you can use to apply the hedgehog concept. Number one, find your passions. Think about what you feel passionate about at your small business. What gets you up in the morning and what keeps you working late voluntarily? Then consider what your people feel most excited about. How does the purpose of the organization inspire them? And what motivations and values do you look for when you hire new team members? And then look at your organization's mission and vision statements. What are its core values, and do your people buy into them? So the first thing is to really find your passions and the passions of your people. Second is to understand what it is that you do best. Here, your aim is to understand what your organization can do better than anyone else. Collins says, best in the world. If you can't be number one in the world at your core business, then this shouldn't be your hedgehog concept, okay? And again, there can be lots of number ones in the world, okay? Let's not get too caught up in, am I going to actually be the best at it? But if you can't consider being number one in the world at what you do, your core business, it shouldn't be your concept. It's also important what your organization to know what your organization is never going to be best at. So you want to be honest when you consider these weaknesses, and you want to remember that not being the best in certain areas is okay. understanding what your organization can be good at is far more powerful. You can use tools like SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You can do core competencies analysis. You can do USP analysis, all these tools to help you reveal what you do well already and help you determine where you can excel. Or you can simply take a look and say, gosh, where am I? What am I the best at? What am I so good at that it's hard for others to touch me? And I think if you look and you use a little bit of intuition, you'll find it actually pretty quickly. The third step then is to discover your economic engine. To have a powerful economic engine, your organization must understand how to generate sustained cash flow and profitability, and you need to be able to express that as a single economic denominator, okay? So this is known as, you could also hear it called something like profit per X, where X is the single measure that can have the greatest and most sustainable impact on your business's long-term success. So some common ones would be things like profit per customer, profit per employee, profit per location, profit per geographic region, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The X that you adopt can be specific for your business or your industry, okay? For example, most of the airline industry historically used something like total revenue per available seat mile, okay? But Southwest Airlines came in and adopted a profit per airplane as its denominator. So focusing on airplanes rather than available seat miles meant that Southwest took different strategic decisions from its competitors. Okay, and as a result, it's actually become one of the most consistently profitable U.S. airlines ever. Step 4 is to look for the overlap. So once you've looked at these Models 3 circles, you need to look at where they overlap. And that's where you're going to find your hedgehog concept. That's the central vision that should guide your organization's strategy. For example, imagine that you and the people in your organization are passionate about innovation and about benefiting vulnerable people. You realize that you have the capability to be the best in the world at developing affordable water filtration systems and portable water carriers. Okay? You have a great charity network and you have experience in making high volume major account sales. Therefore, a possible hedgehog concept could be to develop a portable water filtration system that people in developing nations could use to filter river water. You could also sell these products in bulk to charities. Okay? Kind of a basic example or maybe even a bigger example, but I think you get the drift. Okay? Don't worry if your hedgehog concept isn't obvious right away. You may have to do some additional analysis, or you may have to explore some different combinations to find the core vision that works best for you. And then the fifth piece and final piece is to review and communicate your strategy with your people. So once you've found the areas of overlap between the circles, look at your existing strategy and ask yourself whether it aligns with your hedgehog concept. You may find that your organization could benefit from developing a revised strategy based on what you've learned, okay? Now you've got this new hedgehog concept that says we're going to design great luxury homes, but you've built your business around taking any business you can. You may have to develop a revised strategy based on that. And you'll need to get your team members on board with the new strategy. So the way you're going to do that is you're going to start by explaining what the hedgehog concept is, and you're going to communicate why it's so important for your organization to align its strategy to reflect its true passion, its talent, and its economic capabilities. So remember that linking your explanation back to people's personal passions and values can be a super valuable way to win their support. If the result of your analysis is likely to result in a significant shift within your organization, then you're going to have to plan and manage that change effectively. So once you've implemented it, though, your new properly aligned strategy, aligned to that hedgehog concept, is going to provide longer-term focus for your team members and vendors and your customers, and it's going to result definitely in better engagement, productivity, and profitability. So let's go through those 5 things one more time from the hedgehog concept. Number 1, find your passions. Think about what you feel passionate about. What gets you up in the morning, keeps you working late at night. Number 2, understand what you do best. Okay? Here your aim is to understand what you can do better than anybody else. And if you can't be better than anybody else, maybe that's not the hedgehog concept that you want to employ. Third is to discover your economic engine. That's profit per X. Okay, the economic denominator, profit per customer employee. Southwest's example of profit per plane. Step 4 is you're going to look at the area that all of those things overlap, and that's the hedgehog concept. That's the central vision that should guide your organization's strategy. And finally, step 5 is you're going to review and communicate your strategy to your team. Your people have to know, and you have to understand that as you get closer to this hedgehog concept, people may have a bit of a harder time making a transition if it's not what you used to do. So be prepared for that. All right, guys, that's it for this week. I hope you have a nice weekend. I'll talk to you soon.